When I arrived home early from my business trip, I found my son crying in the backyard shed while my brother's family was having a pool party in our house. My wife laughed. Jake needed to learn his place since his cousins are visiting. Blood relatives come first. My brother nodded. That's just how family works. I stayed silent, but what I did next made them all regret everything. This is about my son Jake, who is 9 years old and absolutely everything to me. He's adopted, something my family has apparently never forgotten. Let me start from the beginning. I'm David, 36, and I work as a regional sales manager for a medical equipment company. I travel frequently for work, which means I'm away from home 2 to 3 days a week. About 4 years ago I went through a devastating divorce with my ex-wife Rachel. She decided she wanted a different life and left both Jake and me to pursue her art career in California. The divorce was messy, but I got full custody because Rachel basically signed away her rights to focus on her new life. My parents Robert and Linda live in a large suburban house about 20 minutes from mine. After the divorce, my finances were strained with legal costs and suddenly being a single parent. My wife Emma, who I'd been dating for 2 years, suggested we move in together to help with costs and so Jake would have a stable home environment. Emma seemed to love Jake and he bonded with her quickly. We got married a year later and everything seemed perfect. Emma's family welcomed Jake, but my family, that's a different story entirely. My brother Marcus is 3 years younger than me and has always been the favorite child. He married his college girlfriend Amy and they have twin daughters Sophia and Chloe who are 8 years old. Marcus works in finance and they live in an expensive neighborhood. Amy has never worked, she's been a stay-at-home mom focused on the girls' activities and social events. Here's the thing about Marcus and Amy, they've always made subtle comments about Jake being adopted. When Jake would excel at something, Marcus would mention how the twins were naturally gifted because of good family genetics. When Jake would struggle with anything, Amy would suggest maybe he needed special help because we didn't know his background. Emma and I have been living in our house for 3 years now. It's a nice place with a pool and a big backyard. Jake loves swimming and has friends over regularly. He's doing well in school, plays soccer, and is learning guitar. His teacher says he has real musical talent. Jake is also incredibly kind and thoughtful. He always helps with chores and takes care of our dog Buddy without being asked. He's been excited about 4th grade starting next week. The incident that changed everything happened 2 weeks ago on a Friday evening. I was supposed to be away on a business trip until Sunday, but the client meeting got canceled and I decided to come home early to surprise Jake and Emma. I had been gone since Wednesday and I missed them. When I pulled into our driveway at around 8 p.m., I noticed Marcus's car and Amy's SUV parked outside. I could hear music and laughing coming from the backyard. I figured they were having an impromptu family gathering, which was fine. But when I walked around to the backyard, I was shocked. The twins were in the pool with Emma and Amy while Marcus was grilling on our deck. They had clearly been there for hours based on the empty bottles and food containers scattered around, but Jake was nowhere to be seen. I called out hello and everyone looked surprised to see me. Emma jumped out of the pool looking flustered. "Daddy, you're home early," she said, but not in an excited way, more like she was caught doing something wrong. "Where's Jake?" I asked, looking around. Marcus shrugged casually. "Oh, he's around somewhere, probably inside playing video games or something." Amy laughed and said something about how Jake was probably happier inside anyway since he wasn't much of a swimmer. Something felt wrong. Jake loves swimming and he would never miss a chance to be in the pool with family visiting. I went inside to look for him, but he wasn't in his room or anywhere in the house. I called his name but got no response. I went back outside and asked again where Jake was. Emma looked uncomfortable and said he was probably in the shed playing with his toys. "What toys in the shed?" I asked. "We didn't keep toys in the shed, just lawn equipment and storage boxes." Marcus rolled his eyes and said I was being dramatic. Jake was fine, he just needed some space while the twins were visiting. I walked over to the shed and opened the door. What I found broke my heart. Jake was sitting on an old lawn chair in the corner of the shed. He had his tablet and a juice box, but he looked miserable. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. When he saw me, his face lit up. "Daddy, you're back early." He jumped up and hugged me tight. "Why are you out here, buddy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Jake looked toward the house, then back at me. "Aunt Amy said the pool was for real cousins today and that I should find something else to do. Emma said it would be better if I stayed out here so Sophie and Chloe could have fun without me getting in the way." "Daddy, am I not a real cousin?" Jake asked with tears in his eyes. My heart shattered. I knelt down and held Jake close. "You are my real son and their real cousin. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." I was furious, but I didn't want Jake to see it. "Let's go inside and get you cleaned up, then we'll figure this out." Jake nodded, but he seemed hesitant to go back to the house. "Daddy, do I have to go back out there with them?" he asked. I told him no, he could stay inside and we'd order pizza just for us. I got Jake settled in the living room with a movie and some snacks, then I went back outside to confront my family. Emma immediately started talking before I could say anything. "David, I can explain. The twins were being difficult and they wanted the pool to themselves. Jake was fine in the shed, he had his tablet and snacks. You made my 9-year-old son sit in a shed because your nieces wanted the pool to themselves?" I said, trying to control my anger. Amy laughed nervously. "Oh, Come on, David, don't be so dramatic. Jake is fine, he's just being sensitive about sharing. Emma nodded, agreeing that Jake needed to learn to be more flexible when family visits. Marcus chimed in. Look, David, I get that you love the kid, but at the end of the day, blood family comes first. The twins are our actual nieces and Jake, well, he's adopted. It's different. Emma actually nodded in agreement, saying she thought it was important for Jake to understand his place in the family structure. I stared at them in complete disbelief. This was my son they were talking about, the child I'd raised, loved, and protected for years. To them, he was just some outsider who didn't deserve the same treatment as biological family members. I didn't argue with them that night. I just told them the party was over and they needed to leave. Marcus protested, saying they'd driven an hour to get here and weren't ready to leave. I don't care, I said. The party's over. Please leave. Amy made some comment about me being unreasonable and how Jake was manipulating the situation by being upset. Marcus called me dramatic and said I was choosing an adopted kid over real family. Emma looked embarrassed but didn't defend Jake or me, she just started cleaning up without saying anything. After they left, I sat down with Jake and we had a long talk. He told me this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. When I was away, Emma would often send him to his room or outside when Marcus and Amy visited with the twins. He said he thought that's just how it was supposed to be because everyone kept saying he was different. That night after Jake went to bed, I confronted Emma about everything. She tried to downplay it, saying she was just trying to keep peace between everyone and that Jake was being too sensitive. I told her making a child sit in a shed while other kids used his pool was unacceptable. She said she didn't think it was that big of a deal and that maybe I was coddling Jake too much. The next morning I started making phone calls. I called my lawyer, my financial advisor, and started looking into our options. I'd been thinking about this all night and I realized this wasn't just about one incident, this was about a pattern of my family treating Jake as less important than Marcus's kids. I also realized Emma was complicit in this treatment. Here's something my family didn't know about my financial situation. When I got divorced, I had to pay Rachel's settlement, but I also inherited money from my maternal grandmother about a year after my divorce. She left me a substantial trust fund that I hadn't told anyone about except my lawyer and financial advisor. I'd been saving this money for Jake's college fund and our future. I also own more property than my family realized. When my grandmother died, she left me her rental properties in addition to the cash inheritance. I had 3 rental units that provided steady income. My family assumed I was struggling financially as a single parent, but I was actually doing quite well. The house Emma and I lived in was purchased entirely with my money from my inheritance and was in my name only. Emma had never contributed to the mortgage or major expenses. She had a part-time job at a boutique but spent most of her earnings on clothes and going out with friends. She assumed she had rights to the house because we were married, but she had never been added to the deed. Over the next week I quietly executed my plan. First, I met with a family therapist who specialized in adoption and blended family issues. She confirmed that Jake was being emotionally abused by being treated as less important than biological family members. She also said Emma's behavior was concerning and damaging to Jake's self-esteem. I also met with my lawyer to discuss divorce options and custody arrangements. Since Jake was legally adopted by me, Emma had no parental rights unless I granted them, and since she'd never formally adopted him, she had no legal claim to custody or visitation. I could protect Jake completely if necessary. The following Friday I told Emma I had another business trip and would be gone until Sunday. Instead, I took Jake to a nice hotel with a pool and we had a